Now let's go ahead and move on to our second segment called GoziStans. Ta-da! In this segment, I will talk about something that I watched this month that I fucking loved. And this month, that is Ranking of Kings. Oh my fucking God, do I love this show. And I'm gonna go ahead and throw on my spoiler alert. There's about to be some fucking spoilers. Now, what I'm about to spoil are the two main characters, I guess, overall stories, but I'm actually not even going to get into the plot of the show. So even if you've never seen the show, and if you listen to what I'm about to tell you, you could still watch the show and you'll fucking love it as much as I did. I'm going to tell you that now. So what the fuck is this show? What is this show? It is set in a fantasy world full of kingdoms, where every king has a rank, depending on how strong they are. We open on the kingdom of Bossy, whose king is a giant, and he's ranked 7th. I know, right? Like, isn't that crazy? Like, we open on, you would think that we would open on the number 1 king. We literally, like, don't see the number 1 king, like, most of the series. It's kind of insane. Anyway, his firstborn son and heir, his name is Boji, and Boji is deaf, and he cannot speak. And he's made fun of by the whole kingdom's subjects. Like, and honestly, even members of the court, like, they like talk about him behind his back, like talking about, oh man, it's a shame, man. He's like so weak and he's deaf and he can't talk and all that stuff. It's really fucked up. And even his half brother seemingly kind of hates him because he's the heir and the half brother isn't. Boji is completely selfless. He is a total empath. He will put himself before anyone. He only wants to make other people happy. He is the ultimate fucking cinnamon roll, guys. That's just the tip of it. One day, while playing, Boji came across a thief named Kage. Now, when I was rehearsing this, guys, I actually started crying while talking about this. So let's see if this happens again. God damn it. Kage is the most there's a lot of tragic characters in this show, but Kage's story is so unbearably fucking sad. And I think it hit me the most because it was in the second episode that we learned about his story. We learn about his entire backstory in the second episode, and at that point I was fucking hooked on this show. So Kage is a member of what's called the Shadow Clan. They're they're still human, but they look like this. You see how he looks? He's like a blob of darkness. Basically, the Shadow Clan are all masters of stealth. They can maneuver in the shadows seamlessly, which is why they're mostly hired on as spies and assassins. And as a result, they have a really bad stigma against them. Like, people will see a Shadow Clan person, even if they're just minding their own goddamn business, they'll just see a Shadow Clan person and they'll be like, oh no, that fucking person, oh, they're untrustworthy. Which I suppose that is the show's take on discrimination, which is interesting. I didn't really lean into that too much, but basically that's kind of the premise of the Shadow Clan. We close in on Kage and his mother. Kage at this point in the story is like a child, and I'm talking a young child, like 4 or 5 years old. He and his mother are running for their lives because some kingdom decided that the Shadow Clan doesn't deserve to exist anymore. So they went and exterminated every single person that is a Shadow Clan member. So at this point, their whole clan has been murdered. They've all been genocided, and Kage and his mother are running for their lives. They're from these soldiers. The first heartbreaking part of it is that Kage's mother knows that they're not going to get away. So she tells Kage, you need to keep running. You need to run as long as you can and as far as you can. And I'm going to sit here and I'm going to fight them off. And she stays back. And it was like a really heartfelt exchange with Kage having to leave his mom. And he had his little stuffed animal with him because he's a fucking kid. And his mom fought her ass off. She took some of them nights out with her. She was one hell of a skilled fighter. But she was eventually killed, and Kage watched his mother get cut down. And the only reason why Kage survived is because he came across a passing caravan of a different king and the king's granddaughter, and the granddaughter took Kage and hit him. That's the only reason why he survived. After that moment, Kage is like a 5-year-old alone in the world, scared and doesn't know where to go. So he's wandering and starving and just trying to find just shelter and somewhere to live. He comes across a town, And in that town, because of the stigma, like I told you, there's like a stigma against the Shadow Clan members. Everybody treats him like fucking shit. Even though he's a kid, he's a child that has a little stuffed animal with him. And he's like trying to like go beg for food and stuff and beg for shelter, and no one will give him anything. Eventually, he realizes he needs money to survive. So he sells his stuffed animal for some money so that he can he can buy some food. And somebody robs him. Somebody robbed him and took the money, you know? So he's sitting here on the street. He's sitting here on the street, a 5-year-old, just begging for scraps. And one day, a asshole thief man comes across him and realizes he's a member of the Shadow Clan, so he's probably really good at stealing things. I could use that. So he takes him in. He takes Kage in and is not nice to Kage. He's treating Kage as a fucking slave, making Kage do all the work, do all the chores, making Kage steal for him and getting rich off of it. And here's the thing, Kage can only see this person with gratitude because this person is the only one out of all of this time he spent by himself. This guy is the only person to give him shelter and food, even though it's not good food, it's scraps too, but he gave him shelter and food. So Kage starts to like kind of see this man as like a father figure, which is really fucked up. And there's a really heartwarming scene, heartbreaking scene where the guy is sleeping in a bed and he makes Kage sleep on the floor. And Kage goes up to the guy. His hand is hanging off the bed, and Kage holds his hand and falls asleep holding his hand. And oh my God, okay, don't cry, Gozi. Oh my God, it's just so fucking heartbreaking. So after a long time, it seems like a lot of time has passed, like maybe like 2 or 3 years, because Kage is like becoming a little bit more grown here. And the guy sells Kage out. The guy reports to the kingdom that, hey, I have a Shadow Clan member, and the kingdom comes to try to kill Kage. Kage gets away, but he's heartbroken to see that the man has like a bag of money because he sold him out. Sometime later, Kage is he's on the street again. He's begging, but he's got a little bit more skills now. Since that guy kind of taught him how to steal, Kage can actually like kind of survive on his own by stealing money and stealing valuables to get food. So one day, Kage comes across like a commotion. This is all in one episode, by the way. This is all in one fucking episode. It's the second episode. It's crazy. All this shit happens. Kage comes across a bar. There's a commotion in a bar. He goes inside. And for some reason, he went inside. I think he looked in the window and saw that the guy was there. He's like, oh my God, he's there. I need to go talk to him. He goes inside and he sees that the guy's fighting someone, and the guy gets stabbed. And it's a mortal wound. He falls to the floor. Kage's hiding in the shadows as he falls to the floor. And when he realizes that guy is about to die, Kage runs out of the shadows. Even though Kage is running for his life here. He's fucking, like, people are trying to kill him, but he sees the guy. He runs out and he's trying to he's trying to hold on to the guy like, no. The guy is in his last moments of life here, and he sees Kage. And then this is the first part of the show where you realize the kind of storytelling that they do here. The kind of storytelling that they do in the show is that they kind of present just about every single character that's not Boji or Kage as a villain until they don't. Because every single character in the show has a moment where you see their humanity, and this is that guy's. You see a flashback for this guy where he is, like cleaning with Kage and cooking Kage dinner and like kind of like being a dad to him. And then when we go back to that scene where that guy is asleep on the bed and Kage is holding his hand, that guy woke up and saw Kage holding his hand, and he held his hand back. And it reveals that guy actually, even though he treated Kage like shit, he actually loved Kage. And it's so fucking tragic. And then that guy dies with Kage right there holding on to him. It was so fucking tragic. Fast forward some more time, Kage is going to the kingdom of Basi to try to swindle Boji. He realizes Boji's like kind of a chump, I guess, in his mind, because he says, Boji, give me all of your clothes. And Boji gives him all of his clothes. But not because Boji's afraid of him, but because Boji thought that he wanted clothes, and Boji's just a selfless person, and he gave him those clothes. And after a few days of doing this, Kage started to feel bad. He started to realize Boji's a good person. Because think about it, Kage has not had a lot of kindness in his life. The last kind person that he ever really had in his life was his mom. And I guess and the closest thing to that, I guess, is that guy that sold him out. So like when he realizes that Boji is like a genuinely good person, he kind of renounces his ways of being a thief and becomes Boji's best friend. And that's all in the second episode. That's one fucking episode. Let's talk about Boji. Now, I said a little bit about Boji already. He's deaf and he's mute. And he's extremely selfless. He literally does not have a selfish bone. He literally could not physically be selfish if he tried. The reason why Boji is so small and his dad and his mom were giants comes from Bossy, his father. Bossy had one ambition in life, and that was to become the strongest in the land. And at one point he felt like he was, and he kept trying to find more and more challenges to beat. He came across a god that was stronger than him and beat the shit out of him. So he was like, so after that, he made a deal with a demon to make him the strongest person in the land. The price for that deal was to steal the strength that his firstborn son would have. So long before even meeting his wife and having Boji, he signed his son's strength away. And as a result, when Boji was born, he's tiny, he can't grow, and he has zero strength. And it's a curse on him that is impossible to lift. He literally cannot, it doesn't matter how much he works out, how much he tries to train, he literally cannot amass any strength, and that is his curse. However, Boji finds, where he lacks in physical strength, he has in empathy, and he's actually a master movement. He has mastered speed. He's extremely fast. He can dodge any attack. It doesn't matter how big or beefy the person is. This is something like he is born with, that he can dodge any attack. He's extremely agile. And eventually he gains other abilities to compensate for his lack of strength, and it kind of makes him into the most powerful person in the land. So that's all I want to say about Boji, because if you haven't seen the show, that's all I want to say about Boji. That did not really spoil very much, I gotta tell you. Like, if you watch the show, if anything, this should just convince you to fucking watch the show. Now, why is this show so good? I touched on it already a little bit. The method by which they tell the story is presenting every single character, and honestly, they even presented Kage like this at first too, until you saw the second episode, that every character that is not Boji, they present them as a villain the first time they enter the story. And it's such a bold move doing that, because like it makes you immediately, and I'm talking like a real villain, you hate pretty much any new character that gets fucking introduced in the show. You hate them. And it becomes that much more of a gut punch when you realize every single character in the show has a redeeming quality. Every single character. So there are characters in the show that do. I just told you about Bossy. I just told you about King Bossy that fucking sold his son's strength to become the strongest person in the land. He did that selfish thing, and he actually did another arguably more fucked up thing later to his other son. And even he has a fucking redeeming quality. I'm not gonna even tell you what it is. But I mean, the idea is that literally, like, it will break your heart. It will break your heart just how much every single character is human. When it's every single time they reveal the humanity in a new character, it just is kind of incredible. And it's such an interesting way to tell a story. I've never actually seen this before, and I think that's what drew me in so much. Like, because I just wanted to get every time they would introduce a new character, I would just want to like be invested and be like, how the fuck are they gonna redeem this person? I swear, you guys are gonna watch the show and you're gonna be like, Gozi, you lying bitch. That character sucks. That is the worst character. There's nothing they could do to be redeemed. I shit you not. You're gonna fucking eat your words. You're gonna eat them shits. I swear. And the final reason that I think this show is really good is the animation style. As you can see, it comes off pretty childish. Every character has extremely exaggerated features, and it looks like a Cartoon Network cartoon, honestly. But it's actually a very deliberate choice, because when you see the combat sequences, I don't know this for sure, but I'm pretty certain that they are using a technique where a live action person, like an actual human, is doing the action and they're drawing on top of the action. And it's just the way how smooth these actions are. It really looks like it's a real person that's doing it. And this is a technique that Disney actually did a lot back in the early Disney days, with like Snow White and Robin Hood and Cinderella. Like pretty much anytime you would see complex movement like dancing or running in those shows or in those movies back in the day, it's because they actually had an actual person do that action, film it, and then the animators actually drew pictures frame by frame on top of that image, and that's the reason why it looks so smooth. So that is, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what they're doing here. I'm pretty sure that's the technique that they're using here. Rotoscoping. Yep, exactly. Rotoscoping. That's the term. Thank you, B. Now, verdict. This show fucking rocks. This show fucking rocks. I said a lot, spoiler-wise, but I really didn't say anything because I didn't really tell you anything about the plot. I just told you about two characters, and those are the two main characters, and everything I told you, you're gonna find out in the first 2 episodes. So if you haven't seen this show, fucking go watch it. It's so fucking good. I just watched the finale like a few hours ago, and I fucking cried. So it's so fucking good. All right, spoiler off briefly.